Alright folks, tonight we set sail straight into misery. Forget the romance of pirates. No parrots, no treasure maps, no Johnny Depp eyeliner. Just salt, blood, splinters, and a whole lot of groaning in languages you don't understand. If you've ever said, "I would have been a great pirate," I admire your confidence and deeply question your survival instincts. Before we hoist the sails, do the decent thing. Like the video if it helps you sleep, and subscribe only if you mean it. I'm not here to beg, just to drown you slowly in historical dread. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from, and what ungodly hour you've decided to subject yourself to this. Midnight in Norway, 3 a.m. in Texas. Either way, grab a blanket, turn the lights low, and maybe add the faint creak of a ship hull to your background noise, just to complete the suffering. Now, let's imagine it's 1722. You're broke drunk, possibly lice-ridden, and standing at a dock with a rope belt and more hope than sense. You want to be a pirate, adorable, like a goldfish volunteering for a shark tank. Ready, let's ruin your life at sea. Before you even taste the salt in your mouth, or feel the wood rot beneath your boots, you have to get recruited, which in pirate terms means caught, drunk, desperate, or preferably all three. You didn't apply for the job of pirate. No one applies. You stumbled into it like a hungover chicken stumbles into a cookpot. Confused, flapping, and ultimately doomed. Maybe you were a runaway. Maybe you owed someone money. Or you were just dumb enough to say, "Hui," to the wrong man in a tavern. Whatever the case, you find yourself blinking under the harsh sun on a dock that smells like fish gave up on life. Before you stands a ship, or something like it, more splinter than vessel. Its sails are patchwork, stitched together with the same care someone might use to sew a wound. Roughly, with anger and probably while drunk, a man steps forward. He's got 3 teeth in one eye, and somehow you trust neither. He looks you up and down, sniffing like he's trying to guess what kind of meat you'd become if properly salted. He grunts. Good enough. That's it. That's the hiring process. No paperwork, no training, not even a handshake. Just a grunt and the immediate, stomach-churning realization that your boss might stab you over breakfast if the eggs aren't runny enough. Welcome aboard. Your bunk. Oh no, sweet land creature. There are no bunks. You're lucky if you find a bit of rope to curl up next to. You sleep wherever someone else hasn't already peed, puked, or died. You're assigned a spot below deck, beside a barrel that leaks something suspicious and probably flammable. It creaks at night. Everything creaks, even the men. Your crew? Imagine the worst group project in school. Now imagine if that group project had scurvy, knives, and an enthusiasm for crime. They aren't your friends. They are competition in a never-ending game of who won't be pushed overboard this week. They have names like 1, Eye Jack, Rot, Tooth Danny, and that guy we don't talk about since the incident. You don't ask what the incident was. First lesson of pirate life: curiosity kills the crewmate. Let's talk about food. You don't eat aboard a pirate ship. You survive. Today's menu: salt pork that could outlive a tombstone and weevil bread, which is exactly what it sounds like. Hardtack so old it has its own ecosystem. You tap it on the barrel beside you. Something crawls out. You shrug. Calories are calories. Water. Huh. No, that was for people who paid taxes. You drink grog, a mix of watered down rum and regret. It tastes like despair and burns like betrayal. But it's technically safer than drinking the water stored in barrels that haven't been cleaned since whoever used them last died of something plague. Adjacent. Hygiene. Not even a concept. Baths are for landlubbers. If it rains, you're lucky. That's your shower. If it doesn't, you stink. Everyone stinks. The ship itself stinks. You could bottle it and sell it as eau de decomposition. But who would buy it? Pirates don't wear cologne. They wear grime, grease, and occasionally the blood of a rival. Second lesson: if something itches, ignore it. If something moves, really ignore it. You quickly learn there is no such thing as personal space. You're breathing in the scent of the guy next to you every moment of the day. You eat beside him, sleep beside him, and if you're unlucky enough, he might die beside you. Death is not poetic out here. It's sudden, messy, and followed by someone rifling through your pockets for extra tobacco. And tobacco, that's gold. Forget actual gold. That's what captains hoard and maybe show you from a distance. Tobacco is the real treasure. you'd kill for a pipeful. Some of the crew already have. Which brings us to the third lesson: don't trust anyone who smiles while sharpening a knife. Oh, and the captain. A walking hurricane in a hat. You've seen him shout a man to death. Not kill him, shout him to death. His voice could sand paint off a wall. His hat's never been removed, not once, not even during storms. Rumor has it, if he takes it off, something inside screams. You don't ask questions. Remember lesson 1? Yeah. Orders are screamed, not given. You have to be able to interpret grunts, pointing, and an occasional mug thrown in your direction as legitimate nautical communication. Haul that line. Sounds suspiciously like, "Hurrah!" But you haul anyway, or you get whacked with a rope that's seen more blood than the average battlefield. Rope burn becomes your new identity. It's on your hands, your arms, your soul. You are rope. You think like rope. You dream of it. You wake up tangled in it, possibly in more ways than one. Congratulations, you're officially a sailor. There are rats. Oh yes, there are rats. And they're the cleanest things on the ship. They live better than you. Eat better, sleep better, have their own drama. One of them is limping and wears an earring. No one questions it. If anything, he's the quartermaster now. Did you think this was going to be adventure? Glory? Treasure maps and singing under moonlight. That's adorable. What you get is seasickness so bad your bones ache, hands that bleed salt, and dreams haunted by the sound of creaking wood and the ever-present dread that the sea might decide you look particularly tasty today. The ocean is not your friend. The ocean is a mood, and that mood is hungry. Every wave feels like a slap from Neptune himself. You grip the rail at night, vomiting your regrets, and someone slaps your back like it's a rite of passage. Don't worry, they say, you'll get used to it. You won't. The rope is alive. Not literally, but it might as well be. It coils, bites, whips, and slaps with a mind of its own. There's more rope on this ship than wood, more knots than sense, and not a single person willing to admit they actually know how to tie half of them. When someone says, "Reef the mainsail," you nod like you understand. Then you yank something. Something always happens when you yank. Whether it was the right something is up for debate, and often ends in yelling. Rope is also a universal weapon. Everyone's been hit with it. Everyone's used it. It's the duct tape of pirate conflict resolution. If someone steps out of line, they don't get written up. They get lashed down. If they're lucky. If they're unlucky, they get tied up and dangled over the side of the ship like a sad decoration until the sharks lose interest. You will not survive the rope. Then there are the rats. At first, they terrify you. Then they disgust you. Then, and this is the most disturbing part, they become background characters. You name them. You track their feuds. You begin to wonder which one might actually be in charge. There's a fat one that eats better than you do. He disappears every Tuesday and returns fatter. You suspect he has a side hustle. One night, during the midnight watch, which you drew because rookie luck apparently means no sleep ever again, you hear soft squeaking beside your foot. You look down. 2 rats are fighting over a piece of mouldy biscuit. You reach into your coat, break off a bit of your own, and toss it to them. They take it and scurry off. One turns back. You swear it nods. You've officially gone mad. Let's talk about sleep, or rather, the idea of sleep. Sleep is something you remember fondly from your land-dwelling days. Out here, you rest in shifts. 4 hours if you're lucky, 2 if you're cursed, and 0 if the ship is under attack, on fire, or just generally annoyed with your existence. The sound of the sea is not peaceful. It's not calming. It's a non-stop percussion performance from Poseidon's most pissed-off house band. The hull creaks like a haunted lung. The sails groan like a man who stubbed his toe in 1742 and never got over it. Somewhere above, a seagull screams. Always. Why? Because it can. The air is thick, humid, and filled with the scent of things that wish they were dead. Sweat, fish mildew, and a splash of mysterious decay. It's the signature cologne of piracy. You wear it without consent. The smell clings to you, creeps into your pores, makes your dreams smell like rot. And then there's the watch. Every pirate must do their time on the night watch. It's less about guarding and more about proving you won't fall asleep standing up. You stare out at a black horizon, trying to decide whether that's an approaching ship or just your brain inventing shapes out of boredom and terror. Sometimes you see lights in the distance. Sometimes they follow you. You mention this to the bosun once. He stares at you and mutters, "Best not to look too long." The sea doesn't like to be watched back. You never ask for clarification. You never ask for clarification. Rumours spread faster than scurvy on this ship. The captain once bit off a man's ear for singing off key. One of the crew is actually a nobleman in disguise. The cook was supposedly hanged twice and lived. None of it's confirmed. All of it's true. That's pirate logic. If enough people repeat it with enough spit in their voice, it becomes gospel. Speaking of the cook, a loose term, really. He doesn't cook so much as heat things until they stop moving. You ask what's for dinner one evening. He looks at you like you asked if the moon's made of cheese and replies, "Hot." That's the menu. Hot. Whatever it is, it comes in a bowl that smells like it's seen war and is served with something that might have once been a spoon. You eat it anyway. Hunger changes you. You used to have preferences. Now you eat barnacles if they look meaty enough. One time you dropped a biscuit, watched it slide across the floor, get stepped on, sneezed on, and licked by a rat. You still ate it. The rat nodded approvingly. That night, you dreamt you were the rat. Your hands are starting to change. They're no longer your hands. They're rope, burned claws with chipped nails and permanent calluses. You couldn't pick up a quill anymore if your life depended on it, which it might. Pirates don't like literacy. It smells too much like rules. Your skin is darker now, not from a tan, but from grime. You wash occasionally. Rainwater in a barrel, if you're lucky. Most days, you just scrape off the top layer of filth with a knife and pretend that counts as hygiene. You stopped caring 3 weeks ago. You start to miss caring. And then there's the sea itself. Every day it reminds you that you don't belong here. It tosses the ship like a cat playing with a half-dead mouse. 1 second you're walking, the next you're airborne. The deck tilts at impossible angles. You hold on to whatever's nailed down. Sometimes that's another sailor. You grip his arm like it's driftwood. He nods. No words. Just silent agreement that neither of you wants to be shark food today. You puke often. Less now than at first, but still. You've learned to aim over the side and not into the wind. A lesson you learned the hard way when your own vomit returned like a spiteful ghost. Then, one morning, a scream goes up from the crow's nest. You race to the deck, adrenaline pumping, hand on your belt where your sword should be, but isn't, because you lost it somewhere between panic and the galley. The scream. Ship on the horizon. The mood shifts instantly. Excitement. Dread. Bloodlust. Everyone's smiling in that particular way pirates do. Like men who've just remembered they get paid only if they take something from someone else. You try to smile too, but your stomach tightens. You realize you're not ready. Not for boarding. Not for fighting. Not for the sound a cannonball makes when it tears through wood and bone like parchment. You're just a sailor. A seasick, sleep-deprived rat befriending rookie on a ship full of killers. And the sea smells like blood today. There is no battle plan. Forget what you've seen in books, movies, or whispered bar tales. Pirates don't have formations or strategies. They have adrenaline, rusty steel, and the unsettling enthusiasm of men who've long since stopped fearing death. The ship you're chasing is smaller than yours, which you thought was good news, until the captain snarled, "Smaller means faster. Trim the sails or I trim your ears." You nodded. You always nod. That's pirate for. Please don't gut me. The chase begins at sunrise. The sails snap open, catching wind like they're hungry for violence. You're clinging to the rigging, hands burning, legs shaking, as you adjust the topsail. Below, men are roaring sea, shanties that sound less like songs and more like war cries. Your stomach is in your boots. Your boots are full of seawater. Your courage is somewhere overboard. Hours pass. The other ship is nimble, ducking and weaving through waves like a fish that doesn't want to be eaten. Which, in fairness, is exactly what it is. But your ship is relentless. Fueled by rum, rage, and the promise of loot, it gains inch by inch. Then you hear it, the crack of the first cannon. It doesn't sound like thunder. It sounds like a door to hell slamming open. The air warps. The boom rattles your teeth. A heartbeat later, a ball of iron hurtles over your head, missing you by a mistake. You don't have time to flinch. Your body is still trying to figure out what just happened. Then comes the scream. It's from the other ship. The cannon hit something, or someone. You hear panic. The chase is over. Now it's a race to death. Prepare to board. Bellows the captain, grinning like a man who keeps bees in his mouth. The crew erupts. Swords are drawn, pistols checked. Knives tucked into boots and belts and places you'd rather not think about. Someone hands you a cutlass. It's dull, notched, and smells faintly of fish and blood. You hold it like it might explode. The ships collide. It's not elegant. There's no graceful docking. It's splinters, shouting, and a horrific scraping of hulls as grappling hooks fly and ropes are tossed. You follow the others, barely holding in your breakfast, as you leap across the narrow gap between ships, one foot on murder, the other still clinging to fear. You land badly. You twist your ankle. You don't scream. You've learned that much. Screaming draws attention. Attention gets you stabbed. The other crew is smaller, outnumbered, terrified. They're not pirates, traders, merchants, civilians. One of them raises a weapon. He's shaking. You hesitate. He doesn't. He swings. You duck, mostly by accident, and trip over a coil of rope. He misses. You scramble up. Your cutlass is gone. You don't remember dropping it. The man stares at you. He's as scared as you are. You could both walk away. You could both survive. A shot rings out. The back of his head vanishes. You flinch. Not because he died, but because you felt the spray on your cheek. Behind you, Rock-Tooth Danny grins, lowering his smoking pistol. "You're welcome," he says, then pushes past you like you're in his way. He steps over the body like it's driftwood. You can't move. The smell of blood, sweat, and gunpowder clings to everything. Your lungs are full of smoke and fear. Around you, chaos, screams, clashing steel, the wet slap of something hitting the deck that shouldn't. You stumble forward. You don't know why. Maybe because standing still feels worse. You see someone fall. One of your own. A young boy, no more than 16, face barely scarred, collapses with a knife in his ribs. His last breath is a wheeze. He doesn't even get a dramatic death monologue. Just blood. Lots of it. You move toward him, not to help. It's too late. But because your body needs something to do. Don't waste time. Someone barks behind you. He's meat now. The phrase sits in your chest like a cold stone. You keep walking. Then you reach the cabin. Inside, it's quiet. Too quiet. You push the door open. It creaks. A child screams. You freeze. A woman is there, shielding a small boy behind her. Her eyes are wide. Her hands are empty. She's not a threat. You know that. She knows that. But the rules aren't written in ink here. They're written in blood. And the rules say, no witnesses. No mercy. You don't move. Out of the way, growls someone behind you. You recognize the voice. The cook. He's holding a blade that looks better suited for chopping pigs than people. Don't, you whisper. He blinks, laughs. You got a soft spot now. You step forward. No, you don't. He shrugs. Your funeral. You close your eyes. Then, a shout. Leave it. It's the captain. Somehow, miraculously, he's chosen not to kill the unarmed today. The cook grumbles, spits, and stomps out. You're still frozen. The woman doesn't thank you. The boy doesn't cry. They just stare. Like they know this was a fluke. You leave. Back on deck, the fight is over. The enemy crew is dead or captured. The loot is being hauled. Barrels of goods, chests, crates. One is open, jewelry spills out, another spices. Another books, useless to pirates. You see one hurled into the sea. Someone's already counting coin. You hear laughing, drinking. The air has shifted from death to celebration. The stench remains. You find your cutlass under a body. You pick it up. It's sticky. Back on your ship, the captain calls for a toast. Rum is passed around. Someone presses a mug into your hand. You drink. It burns. You drink again. It burns less. You sit alone that night, staring out over the dark water, trying not to think about the boy in the cabin, or the man who almost killed him, or the one you couldn't save, or the one you didn't try to. You realize something. Watching the moonlight dance on the waves, you didn't survive the first raid. You just didn't die. There's a difference. You grew up hearing the stories, treasure maps inked on human skin, golden goblets encrusted with emeralds the size of eggs, cursed coins, chests that groaned under the weight of doubloons, so heavy 2 men had to carry them, and a third had to stab the first 2 to keep it for himself. You thought treasure would gleam, that it would shimmer under the sun like a reward, like a promise fulfilled. But now you're staring at a mound of it on the deck, and it just looks dusty. There are no sparkles, no heavenly glow, just tarnished silver, warped coins, cracked gemstones, and more mold than you expected. It smells faintly of rot and seawater and regret. A rat runs across a pile of necklaces and no one blinks. It hits you right then. Treasure is just stuff, just heavy, stolen stuff that might one day get you killed if you're caught holding it. That's why it's counted fast, divided faster, and buried if there's even a whisper of a Navy ship on the horizon. You watch the quartermaster, a man with 6 fingers on one hand and a tattoo that looks like it was done by a blind man with a fork, distribute the loot. The captain gets the most, always, then the officers, then the crew, then you. Your share is pitiful. A few coins, a rusted locket, and a pair of earrings that may or may not still contain someone's earlobes. You don't ask. You never ask. You just nod, and try to look grateful, while the man next to you gets a ruby the size of a thumb, and immediately trades it for more rum than is safe for a human to consume in one sitting. The real treasure isn't the gold, you quickly learn, it's the rum. Rum is currency, lifeblood, therapy. Rum decides arguments, pays debts, wins friends, and fuels stupidity. Especially that last one. You've seen men drink enough to knock out a bull, and then decide it was the perfect time to sword fight for fun. One of them lost a toe. No one even stopped the music. That night, the celebration starts. Barrels are rolled out, meat is burned. Someone finds a fiddle. Someone else pretends they know how to play it. There's stomping, shouting, singing that violates every known law of melody. The deck becomes a riot of spinning bodies and sloshing mugs. You try to join in. You dance, badly. Someone throws a hat at you. It might be an insult. You might be a promotion. Hard to tell. You down a mug of grog, immediately regret it, and down a second to chase the taste of the first. You laugh once. It sounds foreign in your own mouth. Then you notice the captain. He's not laughing. He's watching. He never drinks. Never joins the party. He just stands near the helm like a gargoyle carved from bone and bad memories. You don't know what he's thinking, but you suspect he's mentally dividing the crew into 3 categories: useful, replaceable, and soon to be dead. You hope you're at least in category 2. Later, after someone gets knocked out mid-jig and another man loses a tooth, in what began as a drinking game and ended as a fistfight over a spoon, you sneak below deck. You're not drunk enough to enjoy this. You might never be. The hold is where the treasure goes, until they can sell it, trade it, or bury it somewhere and forget where, which happens more often than you'd expect. Pirates are many things. Organized isn't one of them. You wander past crates of spices that have clumped into strange, pungent bricks, past bolts of silk riddled with holes, past a statue of something you think is supposed to be a goddess, but looks more like a melting goat. Everything here was once valuable. Now it's just weight. And that's the thing about treasure, it doesn't mean anything out here. Gold can't feed you at sea. Jewels don't stop scurvy. A silver candlestick is useless when you've got no candles and no table to put it on. All this treasure, and not a single scrap of it helps you sleep better in a hammock that smells like mildew and fear. You sit beside a crate. It's marked fragile. That's funny. Nothing on this ship is treated like it matters. Not objects. Not people. Least of all you. You pull out the rusted locket from your meager share. Open it. Inside is a faded drawing. A woman, maybe, or a man, hard to tell. The features are worn, the ink bleeding into the metal. Someone once loved this thing enough to carry it. Now it's yours, and you'll probably trade it for dried fish by next Tuesday. That's pirate economics. Sentiment is worthless. Up on deck, the singing resumes. Someone's howling a ballad about a ghost whale. You hear a splash. Hopefully it's just a mug. Hopefully. You head back topside. The night sky is clear. The stars look indifferent. The moon is a coin someone forgot to spend. The crew is drunker now, which makes them more dangerous, not less. You dodge a fight, avoid a man sobbing into a bucket, and step around someone face, down in what is definitely not grog. You look back at the treasure, at the coins, the stolen trinkets, the broken dreams polished and passed around like trophies, and you wonder, what exactly is it you're risking your life for? A handful of junk you'll drink away in port. A cursed ring you'll trade for a new pair of boots. A legend that never feels like one when your teeth are loose and your back aches and you haven't seen land in 17 days. You thought treasure would feel like winning. It doesn't. It feels like weight in your pocket, like guilt on your fingers, like something you'll bleed for and never own. You lean against the rail, staring into the endless black. And you realize the real treasure out here is survival. But no one tells stories about that. You thought pirates feared nothing. That's what the stories said. They feared no blade, no bullet, no king, no gallows. But stories never mention the sky. The first time the weather turns, it's just a whisper. A wind that feels too sharp. A sky that goes from blue to grey like someone spilled ink on it. The crew notices, immediately. They sniff the air like dogs. Old Salty Jim mutters something and knocks on the mast 3 times, then spits over the side. You ask why. He glares at you. Don't question the spittin'. That's superstition lesson 1. Everyone's got a ritual, and no one explains it. By midday, the clouds boil overhead like angry soup. The sails flap like panicked birds. The ocean doesn't rock anymore, it lunges. You're thrown sideways, clutching the nearest rope, which naturally decides this is a great time to try and hang you. Rain begins. It's not gentle, it's not romantic. It's a slap, over and over and over. Your clothes are instantly soaked. Your boots fill up like mugs. You're told to reef the sails, again. But now the sails are alive, possessed, fighting back. The ropes whip, the masts groan. Somewhere above, the crow's nest lets out a sharp crack. Someone falls. You don't know their name. You probably never did. The captain appears, shouting orders with the casual fury of a man arguing with God. His hat doesn't move. You don't understand how. It should have flown off hours ago. You're convinced it's nailed to his skull. He's not steering. He's wrestling the wheel, barking things like, hard to port, and brace the boom, while the rest of you are just trying not to be launched into the next ocean. A wave hits. Not a splash, not a spray, a wall, a wet, roaring wall of sea that slams the side of the ship like it owes it money. You go down. Everyone goes down. Someone screams. Another prays. You crawl, gripping the deck with your fingernails, trying to remember which way is up. The world tilts. The ship lists so far you swear you see fish staring at you from the side. You grip a barrel. It rolls. You grip a different barrel. It explodes. Oh, gunpowder. That's lesson 2. Never grab random barrels during a storm. The sky cracks open. Lightning rips the heavens like paper. The sound isn't thunder. It's punishment. You flinch so hard you bite your tongue. Blood mixes with rain. You don't taste it. Your senses are gone. Everything is noise and motion and the constant, horrible fear that this is it. You're not alone. Even the veterans look shaken. The drunkest among them are suddenly sober. That's lesson 3. Storms will take the swagger out of a pirate faster than a cannonball to the crotch. And then someone whispers it. Maelstrom. You don't know what that means, but the others do. Faces go pale. Prayers get louder. Knuckles whiten on ropes. One man tries to throw a coin into the sea as an offering. The coin bounces off the rail and disappears into the black. You ask, what's a maelstrom? The bosun, a man who once sewed his own wound shut with sail thread, replies without looking at you. It's when the sea wants to eat. You stop asking questions. The ship creaks in protest. The storm laughs in response. The waves are now mountains. Black, rising, growling mountains. You climb one just to tumble down another. Time stops making sense. You live minute by minute, rope to rope, bruise to bruise. You wonder how long a man can hold on before his arms simply give up. Then comes the worst part. Silence, the eye. Suddenly, the wind dies. The sky parts, revealing a pale sun that looks embarrassed to be here. The crew goes still. No one speaks. No one smiles. Lesson 4. Never trust the eye of the storm. It's not peace. It's a warning. You float in unnatural calm. The sea is slick, mirror-like. You see your face in it. You barely recognize it. Hollow eyes. Salt-burned lips. Blood on your collar from someone else. A seagull circles overhead. Just one. Someone mutters, bad luck. That. Why? You whisper. Because there should be none. Comes the reply. Then it hits. The second wave. Worse than the first. It doesn't slam the ship. It consumes it. The deck floods. The sails rip. The mast splits like an old tooth. You're knocked backward, underwater. Air punch from your lungs. You don't know which way is up. You see boots, then sky. Then nothing. Hands grab you. Drag you. You surface coughing, hacking, choking on salt. You're shoved into a coil of rope, told to hold or drown. You hold. The world becomes a blur. Time folds in on itself. You black out. When you wake, the storm is gone. You're alive. But everything's wrong. The mast is cracked. The sails are rags. 3 men are missing. One shows up later, floating, face down. The cook lost an ear. You lost a toenail. No one speaks of it. There's no ceremony. No mourning. The storm took what it wanted. Now you move on. You try to ask someone why they're so afraid of storms. Why the seagull mattered. Why old salty Jim buried a chicken bone in the flour bag. They just look at you. Then someone says, "There are things beneath the waves." You laugh. No one else does. That night, you don't sleep. Not because of nightmares. You're too tired for dreams. You stay awake because now you listen. You hear the creaking, the water sloshing, the sighing. You swear, just once. You hear a whisper, something old, something wet, and suddenly you understand. The sky can kill you, but the sea wants to, sure leave. The phrase drips with promised land, women, sleep that doesn't rock with the waves, and the chance to stretch legs that have forgotten how dry dirt feels. But for someone like you, it's more like dangling raw meat over a pit of starving dogs. And guess what? You're the meat. You stumble off the gangplank with the rest of your crew, boots squelching into the muddy docks of Port St. Melody, an ironically named festering hole that has as much saintliness as a rabid wolf. The air smells like salt, spoiled fish, and burning hair, probably from a nearby blacksmith who also doubles as a dentist, abortionist, and part-time executioner. Welcome to civilization. Your captain gives a single warning. Don't get arrested. Don't get killed. And if you catch anything that makes your bits fall off, don't bring it back to the ship. Simple advice. But advice you immediately ignore. The town pulses with the kind of energy that only exists when people know they're only alive because death's drunk and asleep in a tavern corner. The taverns are overflowing. Fights break out with such frequency it's more unusual when someone isn't bleeding on the floor. Prostitutes shout at you from balconies. One throws an empty rum bottle that narrowly misses your ear. You find yourself in the lice bucket, a charming establishment with a thatched roof, no floor, and a goat that wanders in and out like it owns the place. The bartender, a man with a hook for a hand and 3 eye patches, none over his actual eyes, slides you a drink. You don't ask what's in it. You drink it. It burns. Not like rum should. This is different. This is the kind of burn that suggests the drink is either homemade or weaponized. But after weeks at sea chewing dried beans and praying for death, it feels like a religious experience. Then comes the dice. You didn't plan on gambling, but somehow, your hands have dice and a sweaty man with a neck tattoo of a crucified pig is grinning at you. You win the first round. You lose the next 3. Then you bet your belt, then your boots, then your dignity. By midnight you're barefoot, drunk, and inexplicably wearing someone else's shirt, which is 3 sizes too small and smells like wet fungus. You're also outside the tavern now, possibly because you were thrown out, possibly because you started screaming about sea monsters in the latrine. A local tough, who introduces himself only as Maggot, decides you looked at his mug funny. It's hard not to. His mug has teeth growing from his cheek. You try to explain this, but it's hard to make eloquent arguments when you're ducking punches. The fight is brief. You hit the dirt. Hard. Your last memory before blacking out is someone laughing and the sound of a dog peeing on your foot. You wake up in an alley with a cat sleeping on your chest and a bloody rag tied around your head. You have no idea who tied it. You have no idea where your pants are. You stand up, then immediately sit back down. Your head feels like someone rang a bell inside your skull with a hammer. As you stagger down the alley, you notice your coin pouch is missing. So is your knife. So is your tooth, the big one. You stick a finger in the gap and laugh. Or maybe cry. It's hard to tell. You make it back to the docks. You think? You're not sure. Everything smells like seaweed and regret. You squint and see your ship in the distance. Home. Salvation. A floating hellhole you suddenly miss with your whole bruised, half-dressed, possibly infected heart. But between you and your ship is the guard. 2 of them, wearing breastplates that don't quite fit and skulls that most certainly do. One taps his club into his palm. The other cracks his knuckles. They're not impressed with your bare feet, bloody face, and the fact you're still wearing a woman's corset, which you now realize was not part of your shirt. "Where have you been, sailor?" one asks. "Church," you slur. Then hit you. Not hard enough to knock you out, just hard enough to remind you what shame feels like. Then they confiscate your corset for evidence. You don't argue. You don't even care. You just want back on that boat. You want the planks beneath your feet and the rope in your hands and the faint chance you might die tomorrow instead of tonight. You finally crawl back aboard at dawn. Your crewmates are in similar states, bruised, hungover, missing limbs or memories or both. One is vomiting over the railing. Another is clutching a chicken like it's his long-lost brother. The captain surveys the sorry scene, then shrugs. Better than last time. You collapse on the deck. You think about sleep. You think about dying. Both sound nice. Then the bell rings. Time to weigh anchor. You drag yourself up. The sea awaits. It's safer than shore. At least at sea. When someone tries to kill you, they usually have the decency to do it to your face. If you thought surviving storms, sword fights, and landings in disease, riddled ports was tough, welcome to the real nightmare mutiny. The unofficial always looming, definitely backstabbing, group project. No one asked for, but everyone's terrified to fail. The thing about mutinies is that they don't come with a neatly drawn map or a friendly meeting where everyone agrees to sit in a circle and discuss feelings. No, mutiny is chaos, suspicion, and paranoia wrapped into a stew of alcohol and bad decisions, served piping hot on the deck of a ship already drowning in misery. It starts small. Maybe it's a whispered complaint about the captains, questionable leadership, or someone grumbling that the rations are too small, or that the last raid was a disaster. Maybe the first victim is the quartermaster, who suddenly falls overboard after a suspicious argument. Or maybe it's the cook who loses his ear in a brawl with a crewmate. You notice eyes darting your way, measuring your reaction. Your mouth stays shut. You've learned that keeping your head down is the best defense. But when accusations fly and knives come out, even silence can be deadly. One night, after too much grog and too little food, the captain calls a meeting. The crew gathers in the main hold, a cramped, dark place smelling of mouldy rope and bad decisions. The captain stands on a crate, his face shadowed but fierce. "We're tight," he says, voice rough but steady. "And we're sick of failures. But mutiny. Mutiny is death." A laugh breaks out. Not a friendly laugh. "That's easy for you to say, Captain." Someone shouts. "You've got your cabin and your crew to protect. What about us? We get the scraps and the bruises?" Another voices. "Yeah. And what about that rat's share of treasure you call pay?" Suddenly, the room erupts. People yelling, shoving, accusing. Fingers point, knives flash. You grip your cutlass tighter, trying not to get caught in the crossfire. Someone calls out, "Word on it! Vote to replace the captain!" The captain snarls. There's no voting here. There's only survival. That's when it happens. A scream, a blade flashing in the dim light. The cook's missing ear. Now just a red smear on the floor. You step back. The fight turns brutal. Friends become enemies in a heartbeat. Knives, fists, and old grudges collide. You don't want to die today, so you slip toward the exit. A sharp elbow to the ribs sends you sprawling. You curse your luck and scramble up, pushing through a cluster of brawling men. Outside, the night air is cold and heavy. The ship creaks ominously. Somewhere in the shadows, a man whispers of a plan to throw the captain overboard at dawn. You're caught in the middle, too scared to pick a side, too alive to run. Dawn breaks, but sleep doesn't come. The ship feels like a powder keg. Every glance carries the weight of a threat. Every step echoes a warning. You notice the captain, pale but unbroken, rallying those still loyal. He's sharpened his blade, eyes burning with something fierce. Rage, determination, or madness, you're not sure. The mutineers strike at midday. It's swift and ugly. Blades clash, curses fly, and the ship's deck becomes a battlefield. You fight? Not for glory. Not for treasure. But because you're still here, and you don't want this to be your last breath. When the dust settles, bodies lie sprawled, some bleeding, some still. The The captain stands victorious but wounded, his voice hoarse as he declares order restored. But something has changed. Trust is shattered. The crew is fractured. You realize mutiny isn't just about power. It's about desperation, fear, and the fragile thread that holds you all together. Surviving a pirate ship isn't just about facing storms or enemies. It's about surviving each other. You think you've seen the worst of the pirate life. Storms, mutiny, portside disasters. But there's one enemy that's sneakier, filthier, and far more relentless: the rats.
Yeah, rats.
Those little four-legged nightmares that infest every nook and cranny of the ship and seem to hate you personally. It starts innocently enough. You're below deck, trying to catch a few hours of sleep on a hammock that smells like old fish and despair. Suddenly, a scratching noise pierces the darkness. You ignore it, assuming it's just the ship settling. Then you feel it, tiny claws skittering across your face. You jerk awake, swatting blindly into the dark, only to catch a glimpse of glowing eyes disappearing under a crate. That's lesson one: rats don't care if you're asleep, awake, or trying to plot your next move to stay alive. They want your food, your skin, and if you're unlucky, your soul. The rats don't just steal your rations, they devour them. One day you find your barrel of hardtack gnawed through to nothing but crumbs. Another time, the cheese you had saved for weeks has been turned into a moldy smear. You start to suspect that rats aren't just thieves, they're deliberate saboteurs. You try to keep your food locked up, but locks mean nothing to a creature that can slip through cracks the size of a coin. The smell of stale sweat and unwashed bodies seems to attract them. They swarm like tiny furry demons, multiplying faster than you can kill them. At night, the rats become bold. They race across your face, chew on your fingers, and sometimes, if you're unlucky, nibble at your toes. You hear stories of men losing entire toenails to a rat attack. You check your feet religiously. The crew tries everything. Rat traps made from old wood and rusty nails. Poison dropped into corners. Even the captain once hired a cat from the nearest port, but the cat disappeared after 3 days, and so did the quartermaster's favorite boots. You come to realize that rats are more than pests. They are an unspoken hazard of pirate life. They spread disease, gnaw through ropes, and can even cause fires by chewing on candle wicks. If a rat gnaws through the powder keg's fuse, you don't want to be around for the fireworks. There's an old pirate superstition that rats are the souls of drowned sailors, cursed to haunt the ships forever. You don't care about curses. You care about avoiding their sharp teeth. One evening, as you settle into your hammock, you hear the dreaded scratching. You close your eyes and pretend it's the ocean lullaby. Suddenly, a rat leaps onto your chest, claws digging into your shirt. You fling it off and scramble to your feet, heart pounding. The crew laughs at your jumpiness. They've all had their run-ins with the rats. Some call it a rite of passage. Others swear the rats have it out for them personally. The worst part? The rats don't just bother the lowliest sailors. The captain's quarters aren't immune. One night, a rat reportedly gnawed through the captain's favorite map, ruining a planned raid. The captain was furious, but the rats didn't care. You learn to keep your gear off the floor, your food sealed tight, and your eyes open. Rats don't just steal your supplies, they steal your sanity. So if you thought the sea was your greatest enemy, think again. On a pirate ship, rats are the true nightmare, creeping in the shadows, always hungry, always watching. If you think storms, mutiny, or rats are your worst enemies on a pirate ship, think again. The true, relentless adversary is hunger. Not the polite, manageable hunger of a landlubber with a steady meal schedule, but the deep, all-consuming gnawing emptiness that wraps itself around your insides like a cold iron band. It steals your strength, your clarity, and sometimes your sanity. Hunger on a pirate ship isn't a simple discomfort. It's a slow, creeping nightmare. It begins innocently enough. You wake up, stomach grumbling. You grab a piece of hardtack for breakfast. If you don't know what hardtack is, congratulations, you haven't suffered enough. Hardtack is the sea biscuit that every pirate knows to fear. It looks like a rock, it tastes like a rock. If you bite down too hard, you risk cracking your teeth. Chewing it without water is a dental death sentence. So you dunk it in your grog, water, or whatever liquid is available, hoping it softens. Sometimes it does. Usually it turns into a soggy, tasteless mess that sticks to your gums like wet cardboard. If you're lucky, the cook serves salted meat next. Salted meat might sound like a treat, but after weeks, or months, of being stored in barrels, it smells like a barnyard set on fire. The taste. Imagine chewing a rubber boot that's been baking in the sun and then soaking in salt water. The texture varies from tough to chalky, but the flavor is always the same: despair. Still, when your stomach growls loud enough to wake the dead, you'll swallow anything. If the ship has just raided a prize vessel and food supplies are replenished, the cook might get a bit more creative or desperate. Barrels of dried peas and beans become the main course. Occasionally, you'll see what you hope is some kind of sea vegetable tossed in. Once, you thought you were eating sea cucumber, but it tasted more like an old leather glove that someone tried to boil. You're never really sure what goes into the cook's pots anymore, and frankly, you've stopped caring. You develop a strange skill, identifying edible food by smell, texture, and sheer willpower. Spoiled, overboard it goes. Questionable, you chew cautiously, hoping your stomach forgives you later. Desperate, you inhale deeply and pray, and then there are the bugs. Yes, bugs. When food runs dangerously low, and that day comes sooner than you expect, your shipmates turn to all sorts of protein sources that would make a landlubber's stomach turn. Crabs, which you're expected to catch yourself, become prized catches. The cook once served what he called special stew, a disgusting mix of dried grasshoppers, some sort of seaweed, and God knows what else. You chewed with your mouth closed and didn't look anyone in the eye. It tasted like crunchy despair, but hey, it was food. You notice rats occasionally become meals too. It's never spoken about openly, but you've seen it happen. When starvation sets in and desperation grows, the rat scurrying in the shadows goes from pest to protein. You'd rather not think about it, but it's a fact of life on this cursed ship. Water is another trial. The rationed water on board is often stale, brackish, or outright salty. You drink it anyway, because you know what happens if you don't. Dehydration can be as deadly as a sword to the gut. Over time, your tongue gets used to the taste, but your stomach never does. You learn to drink quickly and then forget how bad it was. Hunger doesn't just make your stomach ache, it turns your mind into a battlefield. You start hallucinating smells of food that aren't there. You imagine the crunch of fresh bread or the sweetness of ripe fruit. Sometimes, in the dead of night, you think you hear the sizzling of meat cooking, only to wake and find nothing but silence and the creaking ship. Hunger also turns men against each other. You watch as tempers flare over scraps, friends turn into rivals, and alliances crumble like dry biscuit. There's no honor in hunger. It breeds selfishness, desperation, and sometimes violence. You've seen fistfights break out over the smallest piece of bread. You've witnessed men betray one another for a handful of dried peas. Hunger reveals the ugliest parts of the soul. Because of hunger, you volunteer for the worst jobs. Anything to keep your mind off the gnawing emptiness inside. You fib about your skills just to avoid punishment or to win small privileges. You pretend to sleep through roll calls, hoping no one notices you're too weak to stand. The ship becomes a living, breathing entity fueled by hunger and desperation. Some nights, you stare at the ceiling of your cramped cabin and wonder how many days you can survive on hope alone. You calculate the hours until the next meal, or the next ration of grog that temporarily dulls the pain. You bargain with yourself, just one more day, one more hour. You can make it. Sometimes you break. You catch yourself staring longingly at the water, thinking about what lies beneath. Fish swim freely, eating whatever they want, never worrying about hunger or rotten food. You wonder if it's better to jump and join them than to face another day with an empty belly. But you don't, because on a pirate ship, survival means adapting. It means learning to eat whatever the hell you can find. It means forgiving your stomach for the punishment and convincing your mind that hunger isn't the end. You learn that hunger is more than just a physical need. It's a shadow lurking behind every decision, shaping every interaction. It's the invisible enemy that never rests, never shows mercy. And no matter how fierce the storms, how brutal the fights, or how treacherous the crew, hunger remains the one battle that you cannot afford to lose. Because on this ship, hunger is always waiting, always hungry. And if you don't keep up, it will be the death of you. You might think the sea is your biggest threat, but aboard a pirate ship, sickness is the invisible executioner lurking behind every bulkhead and beneath every plank. It creeps through the crew like a shadow with teeth, infecting bodies, minds, and hope. The sea itself seems to conspire, carrying disease from port to port, turning your ship into a floating hellhole. It all starts small: a slight cough, a lingering chill you can't shake, a headache dull enough to ignore. But that minor discomfort is a wolf in sheep's clothing. In the cramped, filthy quarters below decks, sickness spreads fast. A single cough becomes a chorus, a mild fever morphs into an inferno, and before you know it, half the crew is bedridden, trembling, vomiting, or worse. One of the most notorious killers among pirates is scurvy. This foul disease doesn't roar with the violence of cannon fire, but it kills just as surely. It's a slow death by deprivation. Your body screams for vitamin C, which you can't get at sea. No fresh fruits, no vegetables, nothing but salted meat and hardtack. Your gums bleed, your joints ache with unbearable pain, and your teeth loosen, falling out like dead leaves in autumn. Flesh blackens, wounds refuse to heal, and exhaustion becomes a permanent companion. The captain's orders to chew harder or work faster ring hollow when scurvy's grip takes hold. Sailors stagger and collapse, too weak to hoist sails or wield swords. The smell of rot seems to cling to them, part sickness, part death. If you're unlucky enough to develop scurvy, you become a liability and a burden, a living reminder that the sea doesn't care who you are. Then there's dysentery, the flux, as the crew grimly calls it. This hellish illness attacks your gut with a ferocity unmatched by any battle wound. You spend more time running to the bucket than on deck, your body racked by cramps and weakness. The smell is unbearable, a mixture of rot and desperation. Dysentery is contagious, and it spreads quickly through the filthy ship, dragging men down one after another. The crew's doctor, if there is one, is often a barber or the unfortunate soul with the least skill but the worst luck. Medical treatment is usually limited to bleeding, herbal poultices, and an extra ration of rum. Sometimes it's just prayers whispered over the sick. The sick pray for death or for a miracle. Usually, neither comes. Fevers like typhus and malaria make their rounds too. They come suddenly, striking with shakes, delirium, and nightmares. You wake in a sweat, shaking like a leaf, your vision blurred. Some sailors claim to see ghosts or drownings from past lives. The fevers kill quietly, leaving bodies pale and wasted. If you survive, you might spend months recovering, a ghost of your former self, vulnerable and forgotten. Cleanliness on board is a cruel joke. Fresh water is precious and strictly rationed for drinking, not washing. The crew stinks of sweat, unwashed bodies, vomit, and old blood. The rat infestation means fleas and lice thrive. Scratching is a constant torment, and the clothes you wear are never clean. The hammocks you sleep in are shared with bugs and worse. When someone dies, their body often remains on board for days. The smell is unbearable, mixing with the salt and rot in the air. The crew says prayers or mocks the dead, depending on how much grog they've had. The captain might order a quick burial overboard, but it never comes soon enough for those left behind. You learn to recognize the symptoms early. A shiver, a pale face, bloodshot eyes. You pray it's just exhaustion. But in truth, the odds are stacked against you. Sickness isn't just a physical threat, it crushes morale. The sight of crewmates wasting away is a brutal reminder of your own fragility. The fear of being next tightens like a noose around every man's throat. When half the crew is too weak to fight, mutiny and despair grow like weeds. You watch friends you trusted turn silent, their eyes sunken and vacant. Their laughter fades to whispers or silence. You wonder how many more will fall before the ship reaches safe harbor, or if it ever will. Yet, the ship sails on. Cannons roar, sails catch the wind, and the pirate code demands strength, loyalty, and endurance. Weakness is a death sentence, but sometimes it's all you can offer. You fight sickness with grit and grim determination. You ration your strength, take turns tending to the ill, and cling to the hope that land and fresh fruit lie ahead. When the ship finally reaches port, you're desperate for clean water, fresh food, and clean air. But even then, recovery is not guaranteed. Many never leave the ship alive. Those who do carry scars, physical and mental, that never fully heal. Sickness is a poison you drink every day aboard a pirate ship, invisible but deadly. It erodes your body, your spirit, and your chance to survive. On this ship, the battle isn't just against the sea or enemy guns. It's against the sickness you can't see but feel every moment. Survival means more than fighting others. It means fighting your own body and mind. It means waking each day and deciding to live, even when everything around you screams to give up. Because on a pirate ship, the deadliest enemy is often the one inside you. If you think surviving the storms, the rats, the hunger, and the sickness is the hardest part of pirate life, you're wrong. Because nothing wears you down like watch duty. The never-ending cycle of sleepless nights, cold winds, and mental torture that turns strong men into broken shadows. Watch duty isn't just a job, it's a sentence. You're shackled to the endless dark, eyes scanning the black horizon, heart pounding with a nervousness that never fades. It's a punishment that never lets up, grinding your mind down piece by piece until you're a hollow shell. The ship's day is divided into shifts called watches. Usually 4 hours on, 8 hours off, but the off isn't really off. When you're not on watch, you're slaving away below decks, scrubbing salt off the floorboards, patching sails, or hauling ropes until your muscles scream. There's no real rest on a pirate ship. Your body is in constant motion, your mind always alert. During your watch, the world shrinks to a narrow band of black water, a sliver of sky heavy with stars, and the distant, ghostly calls of seabirds. You stand on the deck, soaked to the bone from salt spray and chilled by the relentless wind that cuts through your threadbare clothes. Your breath comes out in frosty puffs. Your eyes refuse to close. You can't afford to blink too long. Danger lurks in every shadow. The Navy warships hunting pirates, rival crews waiting to ambush, hidden reefs ready to rip the hull apart. The ocean looks calm, but it's a lie. Beneath the surface, death waits. Hours drag on like days. Time warps. You start counting seconds over and over, desperate for the watch to end. But it never ends fast enough. Your body aches. Your legs tremble. Your fingers go numb from the cold. You clutch your cutlass tightly, every nerve screaming to run, but you stay rooted. You can't let your guard down. Sleep deprivation wraps around your brain like a thick fog. Your thoughts become jumbled, memories slippery. You start seeing shapes in the mist, shadows moving just beyond your sight. You hear voices calling your name, but no one's there. Your heartbeat pounds louder than the crashing waves. Simple tasks become monumental. You stumble over ropes you've tied 100 times. You forget the order of commands. Your hands fumble with knots. Your eyes burn, your head spins, and the world feels unreal. The line between waking and dreaming blurs. Sometimes, you swear you glimpse ghost ships or the faces of drowned sailors staring back from the depths. The loneliness is worse than the cold. You're isolated in a vast blackness, surrounded by nothing but sea and stars. No company but the whistle of the wind and the creaking of the ship. When your watch finally ends, relief is brief. You stagger to your cramped bunk, but it's no sanctuary. The bunks are packed tight, shared with 6 or 7 other sailors who cough and snore in a chorus of misery. The air is thick with sweat, salt, and the stench of unwashed bodies. You lie down, hoping for sleep, but it rarely comes. Your mind replays the horrors of the watch, near misses, imagined threats, faces of friends you fear you'll lose, the rats scratching in the walls, the groans from below decks, the endless ocean whispering its secrets. Your dreams are nightmares, storms swallowing ships whole, battles where comrades fall, endless nights with no dawn. You wake exhausted, barely able to move, but there's no time to recover. The ship needs you. Orders bark from the quarterdeck. You haul ropes, patch sails, and prepare for another night on watch. Some sailors turn to grog, the bitter, burning rum that dulls the pain and numbs the fatigue. For a few hours the world softens, laughter returns and spirits lift. But grog is a double-edged sword, too much, and it turns men into drunkards, prone to fights and poor decisions. Too little, and the exhaustion bites deeper. Others withdraw, they go silent, lost in their own misery. Their eyes glaze over, smiles vanish, and hope dies slowly. You see them slumping in corners, whispering to themselves, or staring blankly at the horizon. They're ghosts already. Discipline aboard the pirate ship is harsh. The captain demands obedience, and there's little tolerance for weakness. Complain about the cold, the hunger, or the endless grind, and you risk lashes or worse. Laziness is a death sentence. weakness, even more so. You learn quickly, show no weakness. Smile less, work harder, stay silent. It's the only way to survive the endless torture of watch duty. The endless nights grind away at your soul. You lose track of time. Days blend into nights and back into days. Your body betrays you with constant aches. Your mind fractures under the strain. You're always tired, but sleep is a distant dream. Sometimes, in the darkest watches, you find yourself talking to the sea, begging for mercy, for rest, for escape. You promise you'll be better, braver, stronger. You curse the sea for its cruelty, the captain for his demands, the rats for their relentless torment. But the sea answers only with silence. On a pirate ship, watch duty is a test of endurance few pass. It's a slow unraveling of body and mind, a war waged in the cold and dark. You either adapt or break. If you break, the sea takes you quietly. No glory, no fanfare. Just a forgotten soul swallowed by endless night. But if you survive, if you hold on through the darkest watches, you learn something important. You learn to steal moments of rest wherever you can. Naps in the sun, brief dozes below decks, quick breaths in the chaos. You learn to rely on your mates. To share the burden, watch each other's backs, and offer a whispered word of encouragement in the night. You learn to convince yourself that the dawn will come, that the sun will rise, the storm will pass, and the grind will end, at least for a little while. Because on a pirate ship, the hardest enemy isn't the cannonball or the cutlass. It's the endless, soul-crushing watch. You think you've learned what fear is. You've felt the bite of cold spray, the gnaw of hunger, the fever of sickness, and the endless exhaustion of watch duty. But nothing compares to the dread that mutiny breeds. It's a secret poison that creeps through the crew, whispered in hushed conversations, lurking behind every glance, and erupting without warning. On a pirate ship, mutiny isn't just a possibility, it's a constant threat. The air is thick with tension, and loyalty is as fragile as the ship's timbers in a storm. You never know which mate is your brother in arms, and which is plotting your downfall. It starts small, a disgruntled word here, a suspicious glare there, whispers behind the barrels, men questioning orders, grumbling about the captain's greed or cruelty. When the food runs low or the seas grow rough, those whispers grow louder. Fear and frustration mix into a volatile cocktail. You learn fast that the pirate code has one cruel rule: respect the captain or face death. But when the captain loses the crew's respect, that rule turns into a ticking bomb. The captain's power depends entirely on fear and loyalty, and if either cracks, the ship descends into chaos. Rumors spread like wildfire. A few men whisper that the captain is hoarding treasure or selling out the crew to the navy. Others say he's lost his mind, making reckless decisions that put everyone at risk. You hear stories of crews killing captains for less. The crew divides, friends become rivals, eyes dart suspiciously in the dark. Trust becomes a rare commodity, and paranoia fills the sails. One night, you overhear a group huddled in the shadows. They speak in low tones about taking control, about breaking chains, about starting fresh. Their voices are bitter, angry, desperate. You want to walk away, but your feet freeze. You realize the mutiny isn't just talk, it's coming. You try to stay loyal, but loyalty feels like a lie. You see men sharpening knives beneath their coats, hiding pistols in their boots. You catch them eyeing the captain's quarters, whispering of rebellion. The captain senses the unrest. His orders grow harsher, his punishments brutal. He lashes men for minor mistakes, breaks spirits with cruel words, and reminds everyone that betrayal will be met with death. But harsh rule only fans the flames. The crew grows more restless. You watch as bonds between men shatter, replaced by suspicion and fear. You try to find allies. You choose your friends carefully, but even the closest seem distant. You hear rumors that some have already pledged allegiance to the mutineers. Every smile hides a secret. Every handshake could be a trap. When the day of the mutiny arrives, it's chaos. The night erupts in violence. Shouts, screams, the clash of steel. You grab your sword, heart pounding, caught between loyalty and survival. Men fight like wild animals. Blood spills on the deck, slick and dark. You see friends fall, others betray each other. The ship rocks violently, no longer a home, but a battlefield. The captain fights fiercely, but he's outnumbered. Some sailors throw down their weapons. Others raise their knives. The lines between friend and foe blur. You realize mutiny isn't about right or wrong. It's about power, survival, and desperation. It's the brutal cost of a life at sea, where trust is a luxury few can afford. When the dust settles, the ship is changed forever. The captain is dead or exiled. New leaders emerge, some bloodied and cruel. The crew is fractured, haunted by the night's violence. You wonder if the mutiny was worth it. If the new order will bring freedom or more suffering. You know one thing for sure, the sea is unforgiving, but a pirate ship divided is doomed. Mutiny whispers in every shadow, waits behind every smile. It reminds you that on this ship, survival means watching your back. Because the deadliest enemy might not be the storm or the navy, but the man standing beside you. After the storms have passed, the blood has dried, and the mutiny whispers fade into uneasy silence. You might think the worst is over. You'd be wrong. Because pirate life is a cruel paradox. Moments of terror and action are followed by stretches of crushing, mind-numbing boredom. The sea doesn't just test your strength. It breaks your spirit with the slow torture of endless monotony. Day after day, you're trapped in this floating prison. The same creaking wood, the same salty air, the same endless horizon that never changes. Hours stretch into days and days into weeks, and the sun's glare beats down without mercy. You stare at the waves, watch the gulls wheel overhead, listen to the constant slap of water against the hull. There's no escape, no distractions beyond your fellow sailors, whose faces start to blur into one another. You hear the same stories, told again and again, jokes repeated until they're no longer funny, songs sung so often they lose meaning. Even the rats become familiar, unwelcome companions in your cell. Your mind rebels against the monotony. It spins wild tales in the empty spaces, conjures visions of home, lovers, or treasure. Sometimes, it invents monsters lurking beneath the waves, krakens, sea witches, ghosts of drowned sailors. Anything to break the dullness. Sleep becomes both a blessing and a curse. You dream vividly, sometimes of paradise, sometimes of nightmares so real you wake gasping. When you're awake, your thoughts spiral into dark places. You question your sanity, your purpose, your very existence. Some sailors go mad. They talk to themselves or to invisible friends. They lash out at shadows or break their own tools. Others withdraw, staring blankly for hours, refusing to speak. The boredom breeds tension, turning small irritations into deadly fights. Tempers flare over spilled water or a missed order. Arguments erupt over scraps of food or stolen rum. You learn to keep your head down and your fists ready. Even the simplest tasks feel unbearable. Scrubbing decks, hauling sails, standing watch, they all become Sisyphine labors that drain every ounce of willpower. You count the cracks in the wood, the knots in the ropes, the number of days since last landfall. The captain tries to keep discipline, but even he can't fight the creeping madness. His orders grow strange, his moods swing wildly. Sometimes he seems distant, lost in thought. Other times he rages like a tempest, punishing men for imagined offenses. You realize that the sea is not just a physical threat, it's a mental one. It tests your resilience, your hope, and your grip on reality. To survive, you find small ways to distract yourself. You play crude games with the crew, challenge each other to feats of strength, or swap stories of past glories. You sing sea shanties, their rhythm a lifeline in the endless monotony. You learn to appreciate brief moments of beauty, the glint of sunlight on the waves, the call of a distant bird, the stars sparkling in the night sky. These glimpses remind you that life exists beyond the ship's walls. But the boredom is always there, lurking beneath the surface, waiting to swallow you whole. You develop rituals to keep the madness at bay. A shared joke, a careful routine, a whispered prayer. You cling to these like a lifeline, knowing that if you lose them, you might never find your way back. The sea's boredom is a slow, invisible enemy. It doesn't kill you outright, but it erodes your spirit until you're a ghost wandering the deck. You learn that surviving the sea means surviving yourself. Because on a pirate ship, the hardest battle isn't against storms or swords. It's the battle against the crushing, endless boredom that drives men mad. You might think that living as a pirate is all freedom, adventure, and glory, a life where the rules bend and every man does as he pleases. But you couldn't be more wrong. A pirate ship is a dictatorship wrapped in the skin of brotherhood. The captain's word is law, and punishment comes quick and hard for those who falter. Discipline here isn't about respect, It's about survival, control, and fear. You learn fast that on a pirate ship, mistakes are expensive. Too slow hauling sails, too loud on watch. Question orders. The whip, the cudgel, or worse awaits. The punishments don't just hurt your body, they break your spirit, warn the crew, and remind everyone who's in charge. The whip cracks across skin, tearing flesh and leaving stinging welts that burn for days. You bite your lip to keep from screaming. The pain is raw and immediate, but worse is the humiliation, standing in front of the entire crew, exposed and broken. Sometimes the punishment is a cudgel or a wooden club. Heavy blows to the back or legs leave you limping, bleeding, barely able to stand. You limp through your duties, knowing everyone's eyes are on you, waiting for you to fail again. Worst of all is the dreaded keel-hauling. A brutal ritual where you're tied to a rope, dragged under the ship's hull from one side to the other. Barnacles scrape your skin, sharp shells cut deep, and the cold water steals your breath. You fight to hold your breath, fight not to drown, and fight the terror of the dark sea closing in. Few survive keel-hauling without lasting scars, both seen and unseen. The memory haunts you long after, a ghost that whispers every time you close your eyes. Punishments don't just come from the captain. The quartermaster, a ruthless enforcer, keeps the crew in line with his own brand of cruelty. He's the one who hands out lashes for drunkenness, throws men in the brig for insubordination, and leads the infamous walk the plank sentences. Speaking of the plank, a slow, terrifying death sentence. You're forced to walk a narrow board stretching out over the ocean, knowing one misstep means a cold, violent plunge into shark-infested waters. It's a death filled with terror, the final moments a mixture of cold water shock, panic, and drowning. You watch men go over the plank. Sometimes it's for theft, sometimes for treason, sometimes just because the captain's mood darkens. The screams echo in your ears long after the waves swallow them. Discipline extends beyond punishment. It's in every order barked, every command shouted over the wind. The captain expects obedience without question. Hesitate, and you risk a beating. Refuse, and you risk death. You quickly learn to keep your mouth shut, to obey orders no matter how cruel or stupid, to swallow your pride and your pain, to hide fear behind a mask of toughness. But discipline is a double-edged sword. It keeps the ship running, the crew alive, the chaos controlled. Without it, the ship falls apart, mutiny, disorder, and death waiting in the wings. Yet, the cost is high. Discipline is a daily grind that wears down body and soul. It leaves you bruised, broken, and fearful. You see men broken by it, quiet, withdrawn, haunted by past punishments. You hear whispered prayers for mercy that never come. You wonder if this life is worth it, if freedom at sea is just another kind of slavery. But you have no choice. You endure the lashings, the brutality, the fear. Because on a pirate ship, survival means obeying or dying. It means living every day under the shadow of punishment, and hoping you're never the next to suffer its cruel touch. You faced storms that shook your bones, hunger gnawing at your gut, sickness eating you alive, endless watches that turned your mind to mush, whispers of mutiny tearing the crew apart, crushing boredom that drove men mad, and punishments that carved fear into your flesh. Yet after all that, the sea still holds the final verdict: death. And it never comes gently. Death on a pirate ship is a cruel, unrelenting presence. It's the cold splash of salt water when you're thrown overboard, the flash of steel when a sword finds your throat, the agony of cannon fire tearing through wood and flesh, the silent suffocation of drowning. It's a thief that steals quietly in the night, or a storm that swallows whole. You learn quickly that no matter how brave or strong you are, death doesn't discriminate. It waits for you in every shadow, every wave, every breath. You live knowing the odds are stacked against you, that your life can end in a heartbeat, a moment of chaos, a single mistake. The dead don't get the luxury of stories, no tales of glory or redemption, just silence, the cold sea, and the memory of their absence. Their names fade from the ship's logs and the minds of men who survive. You see your brothers in arms fall one by one, some with screams, others with quiet acceptance. Each death chips away at your spirit, a constant reminder of the thin line you walk. Sometimes death feels like a release, an escape from the endless torment of life aboard the ship. You watch men welcome it with open arms, too exhausted to fight anymore. But you're not ready. You cling to life with desperate hands, pushing through pain and fear. You fight for every breath, every step, every moment. The sea takes the strong and the weak alike, the clever and the foolish, the loyal and the traitorous. No one is safe. When you die on a pirate ship, your body often isn't given the dignity of land. Sometimes you're sewn into a canvas bag and cast overboard, your final voyage into the depths. Sometimes you're left on deck, a grim warning to those who remain. Your death becomes a lesson, survive or perish. You learn to prepare for the end, to make peace with the sea, to hold tight to memories of home, of love, of what might have been. You find strange comfort in the stars above, the endless sky, the rhythm of waves. They become your final companions, witnesses to your struggle. Death is the last enemy you face, and the one you cannot conquer. You fight it with every ounce of strength, every breath, every heartbeat. But you know that one day, it will win. Survival on a pirate ship is a fragile thing. It's a battle fought every moment against countless foes, nature, men, and yourself. But in the end, the sea always claims its due. So, why wouldn't you survive as a sailor on a pirate ship? Because the odds are stacked against you at every turn. Because the sea is an unforgiving mistress. Because hunger, sickness, fear, madness, violence, and death are constant companions. Because surviving means more than fighting others. It means fighting the very nature of life at sea. And not everyone wins that fight. But if you do, if you somehow make it through storms, disease, mutiny, boredom, punishment, and the endless grind, you carry a story few ever tell. A story of grit, pain, brotherhood, and survival. A story that belongs only to those who dared to live and fight for a life on the edge. Because a pirate's life isn't just a choice, it's a war. And the sea always wins in the end.